when you have multiple definitions for one thing, there becomes an opinion based, which definition do I prefer, right? So you have a word that has multiple meanings for different people. So the only way to unify people with the definition of tolerance is to come up with one definition.
Where does the root of tolerance come from? Does it come internally? Does it come from love? Does it come from external factors, peer groups, whether they're positive, like a positive church community or a positive group of artists or a positive group of people, your family? Or does it come from negative pressures like I talked about to begin with? And I think that you have to apply a very basic rule when you're trying to decide how to expose the flaws of tolerance. Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule, one of my favorite songs. I actually listened to it. I dug it up and listened to it this past week in preparation for this talk. I think that there's so many wrong and right views of tolerance that we really have to and there's so many external rules, like religious organizations have rules. We have laws passed at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. We have global rules about how we should tolerate people or what we can tolerate. But we're all human. In the end, it just comes down to two people who have to look at each other and decide, am I going to tolerate something that you're doing that I disagree with? Are you going to tolerate something that I'm doing that you disagree with? And if it's coming from a feeling of love, like we talked about earlier in the hall, Kelly, then that's kind of your guidepost.
Sometimes love has to be tough. And sometimes you have to address what's true in someone else's life to help them out. Tolerance isn't afraid to give tough love when it's needed. It's loving the person, but not necessarily loving everything that they do. Like, tolerance is not enabling. If I have a friend who's struggling with an addiction and I don't say anything, that's not love. That's not tolerance. That's me hurting them. It's like I'm watching them walking towards a cliff and I'm not going to stop them. That's not tolerant. But we run into these problems when we're so afraid of being perceived as judgmental that a lot of the time we're afraid to say anything. And so we're kind of trapped and boxed into this idea of tolerance as just being accepting of everybody. And like, we need to accept people, but not everything we do is good. And that's okay to admit, like someone cheating on his wife or like a wife cheating on her husband, someone's going to get hurt. That's not right. So I can love that person, but I can call them on their crap. Excuse my language, but I can say, I love you, you're better than this, let's talk it out. And so it's just, if all lifestyles are equally correct, then it doesn't make much sense. There's right and there's wrong. We all know this. And you can't take something that's wrong and bend it and make it right and call it a lifestyle. It's still wrong. If someone's getting hurt, it's wrong. I believe that there is a such thing as sin. And God in the Bible, he says that he hates sin. And it's because sin hurts people. Like, it's simple. Sin hurts people, so of course he hates it because he loves us. And it creates a barrier between him and us, and so any kind of a lifestyle that's endorsing sin, it's going to hurt somebody. Someone's going to get hurt.
So there's a lot of controversy, and there always has been, but especially in the last 10 years, over LGBT community and whether people should tolerate that or not. Do they have, for somebody who is secular, do they have the same rights to marriage and the benefits that a same-sex couple do? Or from a Christian or Muslim point of view, are they committing sin? They are according to the Quran and they are according to the Bible. However, we have to also step back and say, where is our definition of tolerance or a filter of tolerance coming from? Are they, if the same-sex couple who want to get married, they love each other, they're in a committed relationship, they, for all essential purposes, are doing everything else that a traditional straight couple are doing, how are they harming us? Yeah, the Bible says it's a sin. Yeah, the Quran says it's a sin. A lot of laws say it's a sin, or did up until the last 2 years. And a lot of those laws, a lot of people are trying to repeal those laws. But if we look at those two people and ourselves, they're coming, and if we judge them from a position of love, is it maybe time to rethink what God's inclusion of love is?
Here, pick up your Bible. Is it wrong? Does it say it's wrong? Yeah, you know, it's wrong. Wrong is wrong. But you want to make sure that you're constantly judging people not from your eyes, but try and look at them through the eyes that God sees them. So that way you're not passing judgment. You're no longer, you're taking yourself out of the equation. And when you take yourself out of the equation and put God in the equation, then there is no room for error, because God doesn't make mistakes. So don't think all lifestyles and views are valid. And I think that we as people have to know what is a valid lifestyle and what is knowing right before we can judge wrong.
And I'll agree that there is no justification to ever tolerate another human being murdering someone, one human being murdering another human being. So we do need tolerance in that case, because that's definitely a lifestyle that I don't know of anyone who would necessarily accept the serial killer, necessarily agree that we should tolerate, because that is not using that rule that I like to rule of judging tolerance of love. Where is your judgment coming from? And so we do need tolerance, but we also need to make sure it's the good kind of tolerance, that we're not tolerating something where we're actually enabling a loved one or somebody that we can help, and we're not tolerating something that is harming people, like bullying or serial killing.